and it should be recording. Yep.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, Miss Melanie Johnson. We are so excited to have you as essentially our first guest for our Teal Table Talk Tuesdays, which is quite the little tongue twister. Lots of T's going on. And essentially, Casey and I, we love Jada Pinkett Smith and her realness and authenticity and transparency with her own Red Table Talk series. And so we were like, hey, let's attempt to bring this to the RVSP prevention world of sexual and relationship violence and just see kind of where it goes. Teal, our color, made sense just with April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so therefore we rock a lot of teal in the RVSP world. So again, we're super excited to be here and have you with us. My name is Jessica. I should have probably introduced myself. And I oversee the Relationship Violence and Sexual Assault Prevention Program. And Casey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Casey Wofford. I'm the confidential advocate with RVSP. And so, yeah, as Jessica said, just super excited to be here today. Thanks so much for joining us, Melanie. And we always just love having a good convo and having it in a transparent way and involving others, because when we create space for these conversations, I think that's when we recognize that we can actually make small waves of change just by creating the space. So thank you. And then Melanie, do you want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background?
Sure. So my name is Melanie Johnson. Excuse me, I'm in a building, hence my mask is on here on campus. And I am the director of the Office of Multicultural Affairs here at the university. I've been here for about 2 years. Actually, I just made 2 years. February 1st is 2 years. And so I officially made 2 years. I actually did my undergrad and grad here, but I started my career at SMU in the Multicultural Affairs office, then transitioned to New Orleans at Tulane University and was associate director there in that diversity and inclusion office. Then went to Tarleton State, where I was the director of the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and International Programs. So that's a tongue tie. And now I am back home at the University of Texas at Arlington.
Awesome. I feel like you already dove right into our first and second question kind of. I appreciate you just already giving the background context, because I feel like our students are always curious, right? Like they see us navigating the world of higher ed as professionals and they're like, how the heck did you get there? So I appreciate already the background context. So ironically, when you said that your UTA, day anniversary is February 1st, which is Black History Month, that kind of perfect segue into our first question for you. And what does Black History Month mean to you? What do you remember, even when you were growing up and learning about Black history? Tell us a little bit about that.
Ooh, what does Black History Month mean to me? It means a time of celebration that things that I'm proud of, 365, the world pauses and finally celebrates them with me, where people, historic figures in society, and even those ones that you don't hear about that are often talked about in Black households that you look up to are now being highlighted during this month. I first learned about Black history through my dad. I am a proud Black American because of my dad. My dad gave me all of my history, all of my proudness to be who I am. And so I started having a love for history because of my dad. And through that, my love of history went to a love of African American history, because I went through K through 12 and was never told about anybody besides Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King. And to be clear on that, I only heard about negative stuff of Malcolm X. So a lot of times when they do talk about Malcolm X, they make him look like a villain a lot of times when we talk about Black history. And so, I don't know, it's just a good time to just walk into stores. And I hate that it's only in this month, but you walk into stores and now all their advertisements do have people who look like me on them, or the commercials look like people. And now you get all these movies on Netflix and Amazon that are normally on there, but they're on there for this month. And while I wish it was every day of the year, I definitely enjoy February and I absorb it all. And I'm super Black in February.
That's great. I have a follow-up with that. And I want to ask you this question because I just actually discussed it today in class. You had mentioned, now when you walk into our, main commercial stores, Target, Home Goods, gosh, you even think of like grocery stores too, add that in there. And now all of a sudden, like we see, right? Like these Black History Month booths set up, and, shining light on that. Do you feel, like I'm sure you feel the affirmation, right? But also, do you kind of get that mixed feeling at times? Like, y'all are just doing this now? Is it the performative piece, etc.? You could just kind of go in that way.
Oh, most definitely. You absorb it and you stay proud in it, but it's also a level that you can hold them accountable in March and April and in May, right? You did it in February, so why can't you do it the rest of them? And so you start to hold people accountable, but it's also a great time to start realizing the businesses that have always been there for you, to start supporting those Black businesses who support the community that they're from. And so that's also part of that month. But yeah, I always side eye those businesses who only put up stuff during Black History Month. Like I haven't seen it yet, but I know McDonald's, they do it every year. It's the Black 365, and I laugh at it because they don't play that commercial any other time of the month, any time of the year, but they play McDonald's Black 365 every February. It happens every time, and I don't see commercials as much anymore because I don't have cable. But I'm sure one of my Hulu commercials is going to have that McDonald's commercial. And I don't eat McDonald's anymore just for health reasons. Their food is horrible, but one of those companies like, you say this, but you only advertise this commercial in February. Or the ones who, I do appreciate Target for one. Target has been one of those even before Black Lives Matter happened, has always had a Black hair line who specifically will put pictures of the people who own these Black hair lines on their aisles. And so they're a company that I appreciate. But there are a lot of them that you're only going to get it during this month. And like I tell people, you get to choose where you spend your money and look and pay attention. Even when we think about, and I'm going on an extra tangent here, sorry, but even like Wells Fargo, and I've been with Wells Fargo since I was 6, and me and my husband are looking for other banks, and we're probably going to either go with Greenwood or One United Bank, Black-owned banks out of Houston. Well, one's out of Houston. Because how dare you try to tell me, as many accountants, as many people who are in the banking industry that graduate every year in college, that you can't find Black executives to be on your, and we're not talking about no filling a seat, right? We're talking about qualified executives. Is that what you're trying to tell me? No, what you're telling me is you're choosing not to look, you're choosing not to pursue them any other time until people hold you accountable during these type of movements in these months.
That's real for sure. I appreciate, I appreciate that. I feel like I need to look into those banks as well. So taking notes over here.
Mhm.
I also have another follow-up with your dad. You pointed out like your dad sounds like a huge impact in regards to learning about Black history, being proud. Where was kind of like your turning moment of when it kind of all came connected for you? And you had said like I'm, a biracial woman, but like when was that moment? Kind of like at what age do you remember like, okay, like I'm proud to be a Black woman, an African American woman in this country? Or maybe you've never really felt that, right? And it was just a moment of, all right, this is who I am and this is how I'm moving forward with life. But did you, whatever feels right in answering that?
That's a good question, and it made me think. So, like you're Black, right? And you'll go through life, and I think certain things that we're involved in protect us. And I would think athletics is one of those that protect a lot of Black people from seeing a lot of the racism out there, because you're gold while you're on that court, you're gold while you're on that field. And I was an athlete, and I think a lot of that I didn't get to see as much until I got into high school. And the reason why is because there's separation of academics when you get to high school. And so when I got to a lot of my honors courses where I had Black friends all the time and hung out with them, and I'm from a town that it doesn't have a large population of Black students, but then I got to my classes and it was just me, right? And I was like, what is going on here? Where are these folks like that I brought up? And I don't know what happened, because these are the same folks that I had been taking classes with, and I know their academics were great. Somebody told them that those honor classes weren't for them. And when I look back at it, I know education equality was not there for them. And I'm pretty sure there was a lot of horrible things. Now that I'm grown, I've taken classes, there has been somebody along the way that told them those classes weren't for them. And so you start to see that separation of, well, why are all the Black kids in third level? We had first level, second, third. There's a few in second. It was me and two other people who were in all of the honors classes who were Black. And so I started to realize that. And then I started to realize friends that I had when we started coming into dating, they couldn't date certain people, right? And at first it was just couldn't date certain people. And even people I had been best friends since elementary, and I realized you can't date Black people. And so in that oppression, in that anger of why do you see somebody who looks like me differently, through that my pride began to grow. And why? Because my frustration would have me talking to my dad. And so he would tell me how great of a human being I was, in addition to, because I was Black, of how many things that I overcame. So I was where I was, and think about all the things I overcame. And so then he would put my life in review, and he never honed in on some of the racist situations I was a part of. Like, I did a kid-friendly food fight in elementary, right? And knew I was wrong, cool, had no problem with it, should be in trouble. So I was told to go to the other side of the cafeteria, and that's where I was going to eat my lunch the other time. But the kid who was not Black, who started the food fight, who was the same race as the teacher, got to sit with the food. And I was like, and at the time as a kid, you don't know what the reason is, but I was like, Dad, I was totally wrong. I shouldn't have been in this food fight. But Steven should be sitting with me too, because he started it, but also I returned it, but we should both. She was like, well, did she see both of you? I was like, yeah, she saw both of us. And my dad came up there and probably had a great conversation with her. And I got to sit back in the lunchroom. And so as he put things in review, look at all the things that were held against you, literally for things you couldn't control, the color of your skin. But yet you're graduating the top 10% of your class. You won state twice in powerlifting. You did this in track, you did that. And so I found power and strength and pride in being Black, of no matter what the world throws at me, no matter how much they want to put me down, as a strong Black woman, I still overcame it all. And so that's where I found my pride.
That's so powerful. I literally got like goosebumps in your last part. I appreciate you so much for sharing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your dad sounds like just an awesome just an awesome person, awesome role model, and
He is.
Everything. Yeah.
I'm definitely a daddy's girl.
Well, and I know that I'm kind of going a little bit back, or touching on something that you mentioned earlier, just even in terms of learning about Black History Month, and when you mentioned like MLK and then Malcolm X, and how Malcolm X was kind of more portrayed as the militant, that brought up for me. Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, not really learning, well, first off, not learning about Black History Month very much at all, not ever having it highlighted within my school system. But then when I did learn, it was literally just MLK, Malcolm X, MLK is better, like, because he's more nonviolent, Malcolm X, more militant. And then when I actually read Malcolm X's autobiography, I was just like, well, this isn't what I expected. It completely just changed, like opened my eyes in so many ways. And I just remember it being so far from what I expected because of the messages that I had got about Malcolm X growing up. And it made me really upset, disheartened, that I was just like, come on, like, what are we doing, educational system? Like, why are we, he's militant. And even looking back and watching some of his speeches, he talks about the importance of like being nonviolent and how he supports that in so many ways. But if it doesn't work over and over and over and over again, you gotta find another way. And it just reminds me, when I look at people talk about, oh, there's a right way to protest, it's like, what's the right way? Because if you're not being heard, you're not being heard. So that's not anyone's place to really say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You brought up a good point. And that's one of my frustrations. And the more I read about Malcolm X, the more I appreciated him. He wasn't pro-violence. He was, I can only turn the cheek so many times, and I'm not going to let you bust into my home and shoot me. I'm not going to allow you to beat me in the street when I'm just simply going to work. That's what he was saying, because during his time in his life, that's what was happening over and over again. Kids were trying to just go to school and being harassed. Their books were thrown out their hands. They were sprayed with fire hoses by police for no reason, attacked by police dogs because they wanted to sit at a food counter. What he was saying is, I'm not going to keep taking this. and you think that I'm not going to do that anything back to you. Like they say so many times, and it's not going out and fight. So I want to put that first. Is America has showed us over and over and over again, the only language we speak is violence, right? And so Martin was trying to teach them a new language, but Malcolm said, until you learn a different language, I'll speak your language with you because you keep talking it to me. And so I'm going to talk it back to you. I'm not going to keep speaking a different language like Martin, because that clearly isn't working, right? And like we tell people, they still have the same fate. People are like, well, Martin was so much better. Martin ended up murdered the same way Malcolm X was.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The same people that Martin was trying to sit down and have a conversation with turned around and murdered him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yet the history books will tell us that one way was right more than the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as well.
And y'all were talking about Black History Month, and I would say I started celebrating Juneteenth. You know, I'm a Texan, I come from Texas, and so Juneteenth was bigger growing up as a kid more than Black History Month itself. And so that was kind of we brought out the barbecue pit, we hung out, there was basketball tournaments, there was all type of things going on. And so I probably didn't start celebrating it as an individual or even as a family as a full off month, probably until college.
I feel like your Juneteenth comment, even though I grew up in Nebraska, I feel like I knew about Juneteenth because just like the sports aspect of my life before I even like realized that Black History Month even existed, just because of the lack of education in the school system up there. So it's so interesting. Yeah, that we share that. Going back to Casey, your and both of y'all's conversation around MLK and Malcolm X, I think is actually another great segue into what we do in our line of work with RVSP. Like we're very intentional about making sure that we are intersectional, that we're constantly talking about, you know, intersectionality and how that intertwines with essentially combating relationship and sexual violence. With that, you know, we have to acknowledge that to end sexual violence, right, we have to end all forms of violence. So do you believe in a world where violence doesn't exist? And then also, how do you see intersectionality impacting your life or / the students that you work with?
So do I believe in it or do I think it's possible? I would say I definitely believe in it and strive for that to be a possibility. I think in basic violence, I think that there is definitely a way to end relationship violence. I 100% agree and believe that that is a possibility. And I think through the great work that you're doing and many other advocates around the world, it's possible, right? It's going to take education at a young age, as we talk about. Y'all brought a great speaker, and I was talking about him just the other day, last year before, who talked about kids starting to watch porno at 9, and so they get their relationship advice at 9 and how that interaction looks at 9, right? And so it takes education before that point. And so I think when adults and parents and guardians start to realize that, they'll start to have a conversation, and I think relationship violence can end. Violence as a whole, not because it's right, but because we deal with people of multiple different mindsets who are free-willed, who go on their own, who have not been taught emotions and how to work through emotions. I think that will be harder, of just everyday violence of any sort, whether that's road rage violence, whether that's assault in the street. I think that will take a lot longer, because it's so multifaceted on how to unteach that, how to teach people to be in control of their emotions, to teach people to talk through it, to teach people to work through anger, to work through hate. But it doesn't mean we can't keep trying, right? The same way, do I think that racism is going to end in my lifetime? No. My dad was a kid who grew up in segregated schools. My dad was a kid who got kicked out of a place and he just wanted to spin around on a chair as a kid because he couldn't. He was Black, right? And so, and the reality is, it's going to end in my lifetime? I don't think so. Am I going to stop fighting for it? Never. And so, just because I don't think that violence as a whole will end doesn't mean we can't keep fighting for it. But I definitely think relationship violence is definitely a possibility in that, and not even a long time, soon. I think it's education. It's having those conversations young, early, and often. There was a second question you asked and I missed it.
Well, I want to I'm sorry, I'm going to follow up with this. Do you feel like as a Black woman, right? Do you feel some type of way when we know that it's happening within our own community that we identify with, the sexual violence that continues to happen against Black women? What feels are around that when you know that yes, we can end it, right, with the education piece, especially with the community piece, because community buy-in is huge. But yeah, what are the feels when you know that it's still happening? And when it's like, if it's, essentially, let's say like a heterosexual, a Black man with a Black woman, and it's happening, what are the feels there?
Sorry, my mute button wasn't trying to unmute there. I think any of that violence, whether it's same sex, but whatever it is, especially within my community as a Black woman, is disheartening because it's much stuff that we have to deal with people outside of our community for us to continue to destroy each other, especially destroy people that you're in any kind of form of relationship with because you care for each other. To get to that level of violence is, as we talk about violence, angers me because how dare we continue to fight against each other, especially folks that we love or says who love us, and then we got to walk outside our door and deal with racism and deal with oppression. And so when they talk about people not wanting to report it, because to them, I say that, and I don't know that, is, well, I deal with it outside the house. It's something else. It's not a big deal. Or also, and I've heard this, and I know this for true in my community, if I report it, how are they going to be dealt with outside? Because a lot of times they'll dealt with things that are way worse that I'm dealing with, right? And so we'll absorb it, especially, and I'll talk more of a heterosexual relationship because I am in one, and I have no violence in my relationship. But anything was to happen with a male in my family, we deal with it more internally as a community. Not me personally. Once again, I've never been in a relationship, a violent relationship, because we're afraid of when we call those police, what is that outcome going to be? What is that going to look like? Because we know a simple call that says, hey, this issue is happening, doesn't end in arrest, doesn't end in a ticket. Many times it ends in murder. And so often Black women hold that burden in their community to deal with it because the other option could be murder. And they don't want that on their conscience.
Right. No, absolutely, for sure. It's like obviously multiple forms, right? Double, triple oppression, but then having to deal with multiple systems that are designed to continue to oppress and essentially murder. So no, I appreciate you. Thank you for going.
And if you'll allow me to add some more to it, and please, you stop me when you need to go through. I know we have some questions. Is in recent frustration and my friend's on a radio show in New Orleans, and so I tap in all the time, and she had to do a girls chat afterwards of the frustration of the lack of protecting our Black women, but also the lack of the world caring about violence against Black women. Mm-hmm. There was an NFL player that played for the Seahawks that beat his girlfriend to death. Literally, he thought she was dead. She walks out the room and he literally tells her, "I thought you were dead." It made no news. Like, it took a Black man on an ESPN show to say, "We've been talking for 3 hours and I have to pause this," is because we talked about this previously and we have yet to talk about, I forget her name at this moment, but she was beaten by this man and we have yet to say anything about it. We've yet to condemn him and tell him this is not okay. It's being swept under the rug. And I know because I lived this life, is if she was a white woman, it would have made front news. Mm-hmm. Because she was a Black woman, no matter who beat her. And because he wasn't super famous and he wasn't a Black man, it didn't make the news. He was a white man who tried to kill his Black girlfriend and it was swept under the rug. And it took people to keep talking about it before any news station even started to bring it up.
Right. Like I caught wind, I can't remember the ESPN analysis that you're talking about, or I don't know if it's necessarily analysis, but him literally being like, this is not getting recognized at all. And, it very much felt like too, like the Seahawks just tried to swipe it under the rug. Oh, we got rid of him. He's not on the team anymore. he's going to get the help that he needs. And what was even more frustrating about it was he literally tried to start bringing in mental health into this piece. So now, you know, justifying that my actions towards this Black woman in general, right, is because of my mental health, and I suffer from bipolar. And he is, yes, but you honed in exactly on it, you know. Like literally it reminds me too of like back in the day when, you know, during the civil rights era, like when it would be like no Blacks allowed, no dogs allowed, no Mexicans allowed, like on one sign. And it's like Michael Vick did what he did, and the world dragged him so far, right, for the animal abuse that existed. And I'm not condoning that violence at all right now, but just like you're saying, let a Black woman who was physically almost to her death lying on a bathroom floor, you know, and then nothing. Like, where's the outrage, right? So yeah, Chad something is his name. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's facts. You're not even talking about opinion. Michael Vick got more publicity about him fighting dogs than this trash of a human being who chose to beat this woman until she was almost dead. Like, just think about that. In our lifetime, in the 2000s, that dogs fighting each other got more publicity than a woman who almost got beat to death.
Right.
That's the world that we're currently living in.
Right. Yeah.
It's horrifying, and it just, you know, it's especially when you think of professional sports in general, like thinking of that football player. I don't know. I know what y'all are referencing, but like no names are coming to mind, which also says a lot, right? That right there even says it in and of itself. But it's like to think that football like just turns, and so many professional sports just look the other way because they value just the profit of the sport and the entertainment of the sport over a Black woman's life. It's so terrifying. I remember when former partner would like play fantasy football, and I would like go through like every single person on their roster and like do like a background check of them, because I'm like, even in fantasy football, please do not have an abusive person on your team because I won't respect you. Like, you don't deserve to win any fantasy football if you're willing to have abusers on your team. And I don't think I found any, which was good, but I was fully prepared. I was like, I'm about to see so many abusive people on here because we just turn the other eye if someone can throw a football well or catch a football well. I'm like, what else in football? I don't like the sports. But yeah, it's crazy. Well, and I know this is kind of just a different path, so I'm going to kind of digress here a little bit. But Melanie, I know even earlier you were talking about, you know, just being a proud Black woman, and we see this hashtag go around, Black Girl Magic, and we see that, and I love that hashtag. It's great. I'm wondering to you, like, what does that mean for you when you see that hashtag, and just kind of, yeah, what do you think of, and just want to pick your brain.
I think of, and funny enough, I just went to the Black Girl Magic Museum that's out on Mesquite last week. But I think of just being excited, being around my girlfriends, not having to explain that yesterday you had short hair, today you have long hair, or how you got your hair braided, or how do you lock your hair, or how, you know, getting makeup to match, or being able to say, yeah, there's a frustration of can't find actual, you know, makeup that matches my skin tone, or understanding just because we're Black doesn't mean we all have the same skin type, or that Black Girl Magic says, I'm just proud to be it. It's this great feeling of my girlfriends understand me. The life is great. I'm proud to be myself. Because so often you go into workplaces, you go into new groups and organizations where you do have to explain, oh my goodness, how did you straighten your hair? I'm like, it's a flat iron and it takes 2 seconds. And so it's just going to curl up. Yes, it is. And Google is real. Stop asking me these questions and just Google it. Like, you'll Google how to bake some banana nut bread. Why you can't Google that before you ask me this stupid question, right? You'll Google everything else. I never understood that. And so Black Girl Magic is just being proud of who you are in that moment. Like it's a good feeling. If I could explain what glitter feels like, that's what Black Girl Magic feels like. Feels like glitter. It's this amazing thing that you hopefully can never get rid of. That just makes everything better. And it's kind of like a rally cry. So like, Black Lives Matter, everybody thinks it's this movement and it's this group of people. No, it's a rally cry. And the amazing women who created it meant it to be a rally cry of we matter, we're here, see us and give us equality, right? Give us equity. I think Black Girl Magic is the same thing. It's this battle cry and it's all of its positivity message. It says we're here and we make the world turn and we should be given our credit. And it shouldn't take 60 years after we helped to get a rocket ship on the moon that now you decide to give us a movie and give us recognition. Like we've been doing this stuff, and that's what Black Girl Magic is.
Yeah, so Mel, keep with that same energy. How did you feel when we saw Vice President Harris being sworn in, the first Black, Asian American woman to literally break the ceiling when we think of only white men in politics? What were the feels that day? And just seeing the beautiful and forever always classy, elegant definition of Black Girl Magic, Miss Michelle Obama. And all of the getup. But
I was online looking for that maroon trench coat. I was like, maroon trench coat. I was like, Michelle got one. I need one. I got a maroon trench coat. Look, if New York would have been on it, they would have sold out. So it was kind of the same feeling that I had initially when Barack got sworn in. Like, we made it. Like, oh my goodness, I wish my granny could see this. Oh my goodness, we made it. And then my nerves started getting really bad when her partner was standing on those stairs for a very long time. Yep. The same way I was super nervous Barack's entire inauguration. I was like, y'all could do this in person. Like, if somebody shoots him, like, my nerves are bad. Not even like I say it in an upbeat, but like I'm talking about my nerves are bad. Like, Lord, please not let our first Black president get assassinated on his inauguration day. And I felt the same way about Kamala Harris. Like, Lord, please do not let our first woman, our first Black woman, our first Desi woman get assassinated on these stairs. Like, and they were out there for a long time. It was making my nerves so bad, especially after we just came from what happened January 6th. And there was already threats on her and Biden's life. And I was just like, please get in a car, get somewhere. But it was pride to be able to say to my nieces, you can make it anywhere. Like, yes, my dad always told me that, but you always knew you may be the first, right? And while being the first is great, it is tiring. I've been the first in some places. As much as you want to celebrate it, that is some of the most tiring thing. And when you leave that space, you are so broken trying to continue to create that path for somebody. So now it's so enlightened to tell my nieces, you don't have to be the first. You don't have to take on that first burden. So that's great for the history books, but it's not great for reality. That is tiring, beats you down, but it's still exciting. And so one of her quotes from her mom, and we're actually going to put it on some t-shirts for our women in leadership, where her mom told her, you're going to be the first in many things. Just make sure you're not the last. And so I kept thinking about that as she was there. Like, you're not going to be the last. Like, it may be a couple years in between, but we will make sure that you're not the last. And so it's just so exciting. And I know she's going to have an uphill battle, but I know she's up for it the same way during her debate when she nicely told Mike Pence, excuse me, I'm talking. I think she's going to be just like that in meetings. And so I know she's going to hold her own and she's going to stand there tall and she's going to have just the same swagger as Michelle did in office. And so I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I think, and y'all will probably laugh at this, I'm sure.
Oh, you're muted, or maybe I can't hear you. Oh, no, it's me. I think my volume went down again. Yep, it did. Okay, I can hear you now.
No, it was like going through on social media. It's like, you're rich when like you have a one piece whole color outfit coordination. Because like all of them, Michelle, Jill, Kamala, like they all had just like the one piece set up, all same color. And I was like, yeah, I'm not there yet.
And the moment that did it for me was when Kamala walked up to Michelle And that look they gave each other, like that melted my spirit in the best way possible. Like I can't put it into words because it's not words, but I know exactly what that moment was, right? We know
Right.
that look. We know what that is. When you walk into the room and you make eyes with the only woman, when you make eyes with the only woman of color,
Right.
that look of, girl, we made it and we about to do some things. It's just that feeling. I can't even describe it in words. It's a feeling, and I felt it seeing them see each other that way.
Mhm. Yeah, I just, I want to give a shout out to Doug real quick, Kamala's husband, because talk about a man who, again, we're not behind the four walls of their home, right, and stuff, but for not knowing a man and just what the level of support for his wifey and woman and like ride or die hashtag right now, and just being so feel that in a really good place with his own masculinity and owning like, heck yeah, I'm the first gentleman, whatever the title. And I'm just like, and just them being an interracial couple and like this beautiful modern mixed family and just literally like the definition of American, right? They're just,
And I
yeah.
love that she doesn't have his last name in a positive fashion of, I didn't come here on his tugboats. I made it all on my own, right? Like Barack had to continue to tell people, no, Michelle's the better of us too. I just happened to make it into office. I was the crazy one to run. Like she's always been the smart one and the one that's always been there. And so as someone who's still traditional in her marriage, and I will be taking my husband's last name, that also meant so much more. Like she's showing the world, like in so many different ways, I did it. Like this is me, and I made it to this point on my own. And he's like, yes, babe, you did, and I'm here to support you.
Yeah, I really love them. Love them so much. Thank you, Melanie, for that.
No problem.
It was just such a beautiful moment all around. And I resonated when you talked about just like, the celebration aspect, and then also anxiety of the threats of violence towards them, just on that day in general. I know Jessica and I had, several different conversations even before the 6th, about, leading up. We know that in abusive relationships, when someone's about to lose power, they're going to do everything that they can to hold on to that power. And we were like, it's essentially an abusive relationship with America, like governance right now. And we saw violence begin to escalate. And so I was nervous that day for sure. I was so excited and still had that in the back of my mind, like, please, like nothing go down, because it's such an amazing historical moment with the shattering of the glass ceiling yeah, I resonated with that for sure. I know also listening to y'all talking, it brought up for me, I know I've been reading like in very small pace, A Promised Land, Barack's book, and one of the things he kind of mentioned was when he was the first Black president, like people say, they would point to him and say, well, there is equality. Like you shattered the highest ceiling. So what do you think? Or like they would just turn to that as a race doesn't exist anymore because we have a Black president. And so I just kind of wanted to get y'all's thoughts on when people say that. What do you think?
I was gonna let you go first, Jessica, but she's looking so. Yeah, that's nonsense to start off with, and a more educational statement. I really wanted to say that's nonsense, and I'm not going to entertain the conversation. But in a more productive manner is, so tell me what's going on in this room while this person isn't at the table. The same way that my mother, a white woman, can be racist today and she can stop being racist tomorrow, that one individual making it to this doesn't suddenly disseminate to everybody in the nation, right? There's still people in prison in California for their third weed charge, why there are white billionaires making money off of weed. There is still more time for meth that does more damage than an ounce of weed you'll get, right? And so if you can't tell me why that exists, then you can't tell me the single person of Barack has broken down all these equality systems. Tell me, why are Black women still the largest number of women giving birth who die during birth, when they're not believed of their pain, when they're not believed in the situation that's going down? That didn't stop it just because Barack made it into office. That is still happening, and strongly in Dallas, Texas, is still happening. We still have large numbers of Black women dying in childbirth, right? And so that is my simple answer to you. So why is that still happening? So if he broke the ceiling and not everything's over and racism's done, why are these things still happening?
Well, and I think too, right? Like, if you want to play that card, and then it's like, oh, so as soon as the last administration came in, like all rights, you know, like all the communities of color and attacking sexual and gender diversity, and you know, like how quick everything was stripped and pulled back. You know, Casey and I were constantly talking when he got into office. We're like, why does this feel like The Handmaid's Tale? Like, should we literally start dressing in red with those hats on and be blessed be the fruit? Like, what is happening right now? And so, and you know, one thing that like almost made me sick to my stomach is seeing the different, just the interns that were accepted into the White House and the yearly picture that comes out. And when you look at Barack's interns for the past 8 years, you saw folks of color, gender, sexual identity representation, you saw different abilities. And then all of a sudden, when they were in office, white, it looked like snow all over the place. That's it. And I was just like, y'all can't tell me that we like racism doesn't exist. You just can't, because you can just see how quickly within a day, right? Now that I'm more up to speed on the process, that officially on January 20th at 12 o'clock, like that's when everything shifts. And I just feel like the moment this last administration, you know, had that power, and like Casey was saying first, it was what violence can I perpetrate the easiest and quickest against marginalized and, you know, minoritized communities. So
Yeah, so it's not a check mark. It's a habit. You have to continue it. It's something you have to continue to practice daily. It's not a check mark. We made it. It's done. How is it continuously being practiced? How are you making it a habit into your daily life, right? So when you even talk about biases, even for folks, y'all doing this work, myself doing this work, we got to continue to look at ourselves internally. What am I doing? How can I make myself better? What do I need to do to make sure that the spaces that I'm occupying are going to be comfortable for everybody that are in it? That everybody who comes around in the space that I'm in, they're going to be proud and comfortable being exactly who they are. And we have to continue to work on that, right? It's not one day you wake up and you're like, yep, I went to NAV ally training, I went to bias training, I went to privilege, and I'm done. I'm good. Check them off. Don't need to talk about it anymore. Even though we know and we've worked with people who have taken those in 1992. And so they refuse to take them again, right? Because they did it, they're not doing it again. And so we know those people who do think, I've done it, I'm done, I don't have to do it again.
Yeah, people are like, checkbox, nailed it, got it. And it just baffles me. I think something that it's important to me, even in my presentations, because I think people think they hear advocate, they hear even like I have a counseling background, and they hear those words and they're like, okay, not capable of perpetuating any kind of oppression or violence. And I'm constantly like acknowledging I definitely am capable. So I have to be constantly examining myself, because yeah, it's not a checkbox. It's a lifelong commitment to working towards nonviolent culture for sure. Yeah. Blows my mind though, that, yeah. And yeah, just blows my mind. And trying to start those conversations when someone tries to point to like Barack, oh, it's done. It's like everything that you said, Melanie, like everything that Jessica's saying, you know, it's like, it's not done. Like, and I don't even know where to start with showing you that it's not done if you are able to make that statement. So
yeah, and it makes no sense. So it was done when y'all turned him into caricature into a monkey. It was done when you made his wife into an ape. It was done when you threatened to kill his little jigaboo kid. So it was done when those comments came out. Is that what you're telling me it was done? Because clearly, even with him in office, these continual attacks on him, his wife, and his children. Like, these are innocent children that you continue to attack. Like, yeah, don't come with me. That's done. I also have to put in there, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, as we talk about Black girl magic and the current state that the world we're in, we have to give applause, a standing ovation to Stacey Abrams, who is out there doing her thing, like is rocking the world right now. Like she refuses to stop, and I'm okay with that. People are like, "Oh yeah, she needs to get in the White House." I was like, "No, she is a great on the ground boots. Like she is working it over there in Georgia, and I need her to keep doing her thing. And if she needs some folks to help her, I'm okay to travel. And I need her to come to Texas. She needs to turn Texas blue. Like, come on, baby, what do you need? Let me fundraise. Like, keep doing your thing."
Yeah, and I think she's up for Nobel Peace Prize, right? Like she just got the nomination, which absolutely, like there should be anyone else done. Like, thank you for being nominated. Here's the winner. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing her to the forefront. Absolutely.
She made such a significant impact. I mean, without, I don't even know.
Aren't they like trying to start to like literally the Republicans now in Georgia are starting a campaign that's like hashtag silent Stacey.
It wouldn't surprise me.
For like, it's like for the next round, you know, of runnings and stuff like that. And I was just like, wow.
And rightfully so they should, because she is a force, right? That is
exactly.
That needs to be your offense, because she is a force to be reckoned with. At the same time, as we talk about Black women and women in general, of how sickening it is that she's doing these great things, but yet she keeps being diminished of how her hair is, her body size. Well, are you not looking at the work she's doing? Like, why are you concerned with that? And so I know people are all upset about what the coach and wherever said something about her on her Twitter regarding her body size and that she was all this. No, rightfully so, he should be fired. Like, how dare you belittle this woman and all the great work that she's doing because of her size and her hair?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, that I read that article. I was like, you're another piece.
Yeah, and I think that start when people are like, how to start, and I'm speaking to the choir here, but people are like, well, you know, how does violence start? That's how violence start, right? Right there, because he diminished this human being into an object that he can then critique. He can then say that it's not great enough. So he took this human being with all of her amazing accolades and diminished her to her size and her hair, which means he no longer saw her as a human. So then it makes it easier to commit violence against her because she no longer is a human being. She's no longer his equal.
Exactly. So well said.
So true. Well, and kind of speaking of Black girl magic, Stacey Abrams, obviously, great example of Black girl magic. She's just so great. Just kind of wondering, you know, Melanie, I obviously know, I see how much great work Multicultural Affairs is doing. And I just kind of wanted to give you a moment to be able to even just highlight, you know, how Multicultural Affairs supports, you know, Black girl magic and supports women of color. Y'all are doing so many amazing things.
Thank you. Yes. And we can do more, right? Once again, I'm a major critique of the things we can do. So we can always do more. But today we hosted with Dr. Hill. We talked about aggressive assertiveness of how, you know, Black women are seen as the angry Black woman in these spaces when they're advocating for themselves, advocating for their peers. I've been there where sometimes you even advocate for your peers, even your white peers, where you're seen as the aggressor. You're like, no, she said it. She just didn't want to mention it in the thing. So I'm helping her out, right? But that's another story for another day. But we also have our women in leadership where we are open to everybody, but we have large conversations around women of color, in particular Black women, and the inequality that happens. We make sure when we talk about our bias, stereotypes, and microaggressions, we specifically talk about healthcare and Black women. We're so thankful that we have some nursing courses that allow us to come in and we hone in on how Black women are mistreated, how Black women are number one women who die during childbirth for preventable causes, which is very important, preventable causes. We support it in the different programs we have. We have Women's Appreciation Month coming in, so we'll, in particular and purposely, talk about Black women during that month, because we often know in our women's movement around our nation that often Black women's voice is silenced, and so we try to give them a big platform during that month. But we're always looking for new ways and anything we can to continue to uplift our Black women, because we know that they carry a lot of weight on their shoulders from their community, from oppression throughout the world. And so just being here and existing and being amongst, even at UTA, our Black women are excelling at high levels amongst their peers, right? And so they're dealing with this oppression, they're dealing with this weight of their community, but they're still excelling, right? Like my dad said, but remember, you overcame all this, all this, all this, and didn't realize it to make it to here. And so that's what our Black women are doing. And so if nothing else, we celebrate them within our office, and we try to post them as much as we can on our Instagram, celebrate them, whether that's Blaze, who used to be our student assistant, who is now our student body president. She's the first Black woman in 35 years to hold that position.
Wow.
And so as soon as she got it, we posted it, right? Because we want people not only to see her and her to be proud of what she's done, but to show other women that you can do it and it's possible, and you're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely. And we have Blaze for our next guest. And
Oh, yay.
so we're super excited to have her at our table.
love it.
Melanie, perfect way to kind of wrap up this beautiful conversation with you. What is one or many things you want Black female students to know that are watching, that are going to watch this as we post it on all of our platforms? What's one or many things you want Black women to know here at UTA?
It's okay to not know. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be frightened. And the next day you get up and you fix your crown and you keep going, right? Because that's what we do. That's what we always done. One thing that we haven't done is that emotional piece. It's okay to seek help. You're not expected to carry the whole world, even though we have, right? We literally birthed this nation. We literally took care of people who oppressed us, who later lynched, our children. That's what Black women did in this nation. And so we are the strength of this nation, and be proud of that. But it's okay to say today, it's too much. Tomorrow, I'm going to get up and I'll straighten my crown. But today I'm going to stay in the blanket and I'm going to watch Netflix and I'm going to cry and I'm going to be angry and I'm going to be frustrated. And that's okay, because tomorrow you'll get up and you'll do great things.
I love that so much. I feel like it, y'all, I'm on social media too much, but there's like a meme that was like, are you going to cry, or like, are you going to cry, or are you going to boss up? And then there was like, first of all, I'm going to do both. And I was like, yes. But I love that, on just creating that space to let Black women feel the feels, right? And experience the discomfort, and allow yourself to just really be in that, and always support no matter what on all avenues, right? So yeah, Melanie, we appreciate you so much.
This is fun. I like this. This is good.
Our first ever, Teal Table Talk Tuesday guest.
This is awesome.
This is so great. So yeah.
I'm glad y'all have this platform. Keep it up.
Of course. Yeah, we're excited. 2 weeks, we'll have Blaze on here, get to dive in more to that student perspective and all the amazing things. I had no clue. I mean, I'm not surprised, but 35 years, we haven't had a Black student president. So yeah, hopefully, like you said, right, she's the first right now and being able to say, but not the last by any means. So definitely excited to bring her on. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me. I enjoyed it. This was fun.
Good.
Thank you, Melanie. You're awesome. Appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you, Casey.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.